Today I want to do a video tutorial of one of the most popular tutorials on my blog. It's the Canada Day bunting flag tutorial, and you can also modify it for Independence Day. I've added a template to the blog post, which I'll link in the description below, to make stars if you want to do that for Independence Day. And there's a maple leaf template for Canada Day. So you're going to need to download and print those templates. And then you're going to need some burlap, which I got at a local decor store, and also some of this I got at Walmart, this lighter one. I think they have rolls of burlap at Walmart. These are Shui Shui fabrics from meerkatshuishui.com, and I also have some Kona to do my applique. You're going to need Heat and Bond Ultra Hold. You can use Heat and Bond Light, but this one will last longer and you won't need to worry about it peeling off as much. And then I also have some burlap wired ribbon. This I got at Walmart as well. If you could get it without wire, that would be better, so you don't have to worry about keeping that wire away from your sewing needle, but this will work. And I also have some jute ribbon. Let's get started making our bunting flag. The first thing we're going to do is trace our templates onto our Heat and Bond. So there's a shiny side, that's the fusible, that goes face down, and the paper side is face up. And you're going to need to trace one for each bunting flag. So if you're doing 5 flags, you need 5 appliques. If you're doing 7 flags, you need 7. So I'm doing 7. I'm going to do a star on each end, and then a maple leaf on the other 5. So just, you can see it through the paper. So just trace it out with a pencil, or if that is hard to see, you can tape it up on a window and trace it out that way. And then once you have it all traced, you're gonna grab some paper scissors and cut that out. Just cut it to the outside of your pencil line, because once we fuse it down onto the fabric, we're going to want to cut it out of the fabric. So we're going to want to be able to see our line. Okay, so now that we have our templates traced out onto the paper side of our fusible, our fabric right side down, and our fusible shiny side down on top of that with the paper side up. And we will press that with no steam at this point, just hot iron. So just glide your iron over that and then check if it's sticking. Okay, and then we're just going to take our paper scissors, or scissors that aren't really precious sewing scissors anyway, and just cut around our applique shapes right on the pencil lines. Okay, so now we need to cut out our flags. In my original tutorial, I said to cut them 6 by 8, the rectangles, but I found, because I live on the prairie in Alberta, it's very windy here, and even though I stitched around the flags twice, they still frayed past the stitching, flapping in the wind over a couple of years. So I'm going to cut mine at 6.5 by 8 so that I have a seam allowance. And I'm going to sew some Kona, just plain white Kona, or you could use muslin, on the back of them, just so I have my seam edges enclosed, because it's so windy here. But if you're using yours in a sheltered spot or inside, then you don't need to worry about backing them, because they won't get blown around as much, and they won't fray as quickly as mine did. So, well, I guess I had mine for about 4 years, but this year I need a new set. So you're going to cut all your flags out of your burlap at 6 by 8 if you're not backing them, or 6.5 by 8.5 if you are backing them. And what I learned is that things look best in odd numbers. So make your flags an odd number, either 5, 7, or 9. Just keep that in mind, that you would like to have an odd number of flags. So I'm cutting all mine at 6.5 by 8.5 so that I have a seam allowance. Okay, and one thing to keep in mind is burlap is quite messy, so you're going to need to clean your cutting mat after this. But the next step is to fold them in half so that they are 3 by 8, or if you're doing them like me, they'll be 3 1/4 by 8.5. And then just measure up to 3 inches. I'm just going to put it at the 3-inch mark on my mat here, and cut from that 3-inch down to the bottom corner. And then you can stitch around them twice if you're not backing them, or you will repeat this process with the Kona to make your back, or with your muslin, whatever you're using. So if you're putting Kona on the back like I am, or muslin, I just have this left over from backing a quilt, so I'm using the Kona. Make sure, and same goes for the burlap, that you're cutting from the 2 corners to the folded edge like this, because I just made a mistake, which I'll show you. And I cut from the raw edges to the folded edge, and I wound up with flags. Oh, sorry, that's the wrong one. I cut from the bottom corner to the raw edges instead of the folded edge, and I wound up with flags like this. So these would be cute for a little princess birthday party or something, so I'll just save them. But yeah, you want to cut from the raw edges to the fold so that you can get that shape of a flag. Okay, so if you're following along, if you're not doing the Kona, just skip to the next step. If you're going to be putting the backing on your flags, you're going to lay your burlap on top of your backing fabric, muslin or Kona, and we're going to stitch a 1/4 inch all the way around the flag, but we're not going to sew the top. We're going to leave that open so that we can turn our flags right side out, and we'll just clip off our corners at the bottom right near our seam so that we can try to poke them out as pointy as we can get them. So I've clipped all around my flag. I'm just going to sew with a 1/4 inch seam. And just leave my needle down and pivot at the corners. Okay, so I'm just going to show this corner clip. I'm going to clip right here, not through the seam, but right next to the seam. Then I'm going to do a couple of angle clips. And I think too, I'm going to clip into the seam allowance up here, because I think I want it to be a little bit more of a point right there. So I'm going to clip there, but not all the way to the seam, and then turn it right side out through the top. So they're all sewn to their backing now, and I'm just going to give this last one a quick press with some steam. I have the iron set to wool because I don't want to melt. I don't know how much heat that burlap can take. But I'm going to grab a little scrap of fabric here, and I'm going to lay all my flags out so I don't get myself confused with what I was doing. So there, now they're all in alternating colors. And then I'm gonna have one of these dotted ones in the center and a solid one next to that, and then another dotted one, and then a star on the end, and same over here. So we're just going to peel that paper backing off, and it looks shiny underneath. That's the other side of the fusible. So we'll just get this laid out on our flag. I think mine is a little bit long. I'll cut some of that leaf stem off. There we go. Get it centered over that center point right here. And then I will stick this scrap piece of Kona over top. I might just turn the iron up a little hotter. And at this point, you're going to want to hit this with steam so that you can fuse it down really good. And then just check with your fingernails that it's really stuck down. Now again, if you are putting this in a more sheltered area, you could probably just leave it like this, or if you want to secure it a little bit more, I'm going to stitch all the way around with some red thread just to make sure that this doesn't come apart in the wind. Okay, so I've got all my applique pieces stitched down. I used 50 weight in the bobbin and 28 weight in the top, just so the thread would show up a little bit. Again, this is optional. If you don't want to stitch around, that's fine. So I've got my jute ribbon here. It's 4.5 meters, 5 yards. This came from close to my heart, like years ago. So I don't know if you can still get it, but I have it here, so I'm going to use it. So I've marked the center with a clip, and I'm just going to lay out all my flags and clip them in place so that I can sew them all to this ribbon. You could also use twill tape, or like I said, that burlap tape or burlap ribbon. I had that burlap ribbon from Walmart as well. So, and you're going to want to leave room on the ends to tie to your deck railing or your wherever you're putting this up. I'm just going to space these all out along the ribbon. Try to get them even. So it looks like I have about 5 inches in between each one. But you can put yours closer or farther away how you want. So that leaves me a fair amount on the end to tie it to my deck railings. So I'm just going to sew along the top, and in that way I will also be closing up my opening on the top. So we'll sew along the top with 2 or 3 rows of stitches, and we should be good to hang this up. And there we go, our finished bunting flag string. Thank you so much for sewing along with me today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to know when new tutorial videos are released. And I hope you have a happy Canada Day and a happy Independence Day. And tag me on Instagram or Facebook at Daydreams of Quilts to show me your makes with this tutorial. Okay, let's head outside and see how it looks on the front deck. Okay, here is the finished bunting flag string out on the front deck railing, and I think it looks really good.